What up, people? Welcome to a special edition of the Salty Thoughts of Mike Steph podcast, featuring the one and only Mike Steph, best in the world at what he does. I am joined here at the very beginning of the show with my brother from the left coast, the desert part of the left coast, Tyler McDowell-Blanken, one half of GI Gimmick Infringement, founder and host and creator of 4AZ, 4AZ.org, 4AZ the organization, 4AZ the movement, the whole nine. Tyler J. McDowell Blanken. Even though he is frozen. How you doing, Tyler?
Even the applause. Mike Steph, what's up, brother? It's great to be back. Thank you, as always, for such a spectacular intro. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting my invitation, as always. I love, chop it up with you on and off screen, on and off camera, on and off audio. One of these years, hopefully sooner than later, we'll actually be off the virtual land and be face to face, so I can actually, size you up and see if I can give you that jab set. Fade away.
Where's it go with this?
Give him the old Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing to turn around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, meet me at Yankee Stadium, Mike Steph. Congratulations to your Mets, by the way. It's not really an opportune time for me to say that, given how the most recent series went. But congrats to you on that. And also, before I get congratulations on the release of your new mixtape, 30 Months. Bravo, my brother. Bravo.
Thank you.
Amazing job,
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate that. What makes this episode special, besides the fact that I'm on it, besides the fact that Tyler's on it, is the fact that we're going to podcasting waters some evergreen content, which is the current situation that the straight edge savior, the second city saint, CM Punk, has been in the last couple weeks. Everybody has their opinion on what's going on or what happened. Him actually wrestling in Saudi Arabia on last weekend's Night of Champion offering by WWE, aka Blood Money 14, and the fact that we've known in the past, or at least we believed in the past, we knew of CM Punk's thoughts about participating in events that happen in Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, things have changed. I mean, things can change. People's opinions can change, and everybody's entitled to change their opinion or change their stance. Some boxed in to him being there, being against the regime, being against their thoughts and beliefs, and other people are maybe a little bit more flexible in whether or not he's deemed a hypocrite or not. I've said it on. I actually had this topic on one of my past episodes of CM Punk. Is he the voice of the voiceless or the voice of hypocrisy? And I had my saying, and Brother McDowell had his opinions, and I was like, you know what? Since we was going back and forth in the DM, back and forth in the group chat, I was like, being the fact that between us, we got about 5 podcasts, this would be a perfect topic for one of them.
So true.
You can choose which platform. We could do GI, we could do mine, Salty Thoughts. We can make this educational and go on 4AZ. We could even maybe try to bring some hidden gems out and go on hidden gems football. But regardless, I figured, listen, this is ripe for content. This is ripe for a debate, and I figured, why not? It'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It'll get his thoughts out clearly to the masses. It'll get my thoughts out clearly to the masses. I'm quite sure a lot of people know where I stand, and personal people of Tyler probably knows where he stands. But being the fact that I like to draw out some opinions, some maybe controversial takes when I can, I want him to be on camera to say whatever he needed to say. So therefore, we can actually pull up the receipts if something changes in the near future. Because I've changed a lot over the last couple of years, but part of me that's still the same, maybe just to a lesser degree, is I will go in the archives to prove my point. Call it petty, call it vindictive. No, I wouldn't call that because those are negative connotations. But at the same time, a fact is the fact, opinion is opinion. And if you could if you can show your fact and have backup for your fact, evidence for your fact, it's just that much sweeter when you're able to bask in the glow of victory. So that's what's on tap this week. Do you have anything to add before we get this show on the way, Mr. McDowell? Because I've been talking about for like 4 minutes straight.
I have nothing to add, Mike, Steph. This sounds great. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Okay. I said before we recorded, this shirt that I have on right now, this is the original Best in the World CM Punk t-shirt, circa 2011, circa the original pipe bomb era. It's not a reissue. It's not, oh yeah, I'm going to make my own. No, this is actually, because I watched this so much, it's actually was a 2X, but it's probably shrunk down to a 1X, which actually fits my frame just so awesomely. But the reason I brought this out the archives is because I told Brother McDowell that, listen, I mean, I'm not going low, but I mean business. I'm going to be about my business. He's always about the smoke. I'm about my business. I can't say I'm about the smoke because those 3 X's. Yeah, that's what I'm about right now. So, with all that being said, we're gonna get this show on the way. Without further ado, good night, and goodbye. Bang.
Salty thoughts of Mike Steph, this marks a new beginning. Thanks for supporting a total reinvention. The soul is still here, but the vibe's a little different. Unpredictable, hide the kids and the women. Sports of all sorts, music, mixed for living. Rep New York City, but hate the politicians. Always bring the heat, Steph bacon in the kitchen. Big shout to y'all, I appreciate the listen. Donnie put the rest, but I'm still in the best. In the word of what I do, all y'all know the rest. I live it, I breathe it, I'm the whole definition. The pinnacle, the ultimate, I'm on a new mission. The Salty Thoughts of Mike Steph, featuring the one and only Mike Steph, the best in the world of what he does. Tap in.
Okay, we're back. And the topic at hand, like I said in the intro, is the CM Punk debate, the CM Punk quandary, if you will. Is he a hypocrite for performing in Saudi Arabia after being very vocal in his distaste, in his negative thoughts, negative feelings about what was going over there, especially being the fact that he's very vocal on a lot of social issues, at least on the right. 99% of the time, he's on the right side of social issues. He's about workers' rights, which is kind of facetious for me to say, especially what's going on, what happened in AEW. He's really about the LGBTQIA society, the whole nine. He's been with these No King's Day protesters and so forth. So a lot of times he is on the right side, or at least to perceive the right side of these social issues. So that's what made it so controversial for him to actually go to Saudi Arabia. Now, I have feelings on how he's being portrayed by the majority of the masses, being called a sellout, being called a hypocrite, amongst others. Now, before I give my thoughts, because a lot of people who are viewers of the Salty Thoughts of Mike Steph already know my thoughts. That's why I brought this man over here so he can tell me his thoughts, and then we can have a debate about it. So the floor is yours, Tyler. What has your opinion changed of Mr. Punk? And if so, why have your opinion changed of Mr. Punk? We're not going to go by government names here because we don't know him personally, so we're going to call him Mr. Punk, or CM for short.
I can agree to these terms, Mike. So In summary, yes. Yeah, my opinion has changed. Now, mind you, like you, I wore the CM Punk tees just off screen. I'm looking at the CM Punk Best in the World. This is a total flex, by the way, for your audience. I'm looking at the CM Punk Best in the World ringside collectibles figure from when he debuted in AEW at the United Center, second episode of Rampage. So know that I'm a fan of CM Punk, and like you, when he arrived in WWE, I wasn't really familiar with his game prior to showing up in WWE ECW, but I remember just being captivated by his presentation and by the not only the groundswell of support that he had from jump. I was like, oh man, this dude is really well known, but just how different he was, not only for the in-ring style, not only the promos, but just the overall package. Even again, dating back to when I first saw him, that had to be 15, maybe soon enough, 20 years ago. And that's why I felt really disappointed in him going to Saudi Arabia for Night of Champions. You know this about me, Mike, and I know you've expressed your thoughts on what I'm about to say during a previous episode, which maybe we'll get into. I do not watch any of the Crown Jewel shows. It's a bummer that I'm not going to get to watch Royal Rumble in January, as WWE is not only continuing to renew their contract with Saudi Arabia, but they're in fact adding more shows. And I would foresee that a WrestleMania, at least I predict, I'm just a 30-something single guy with a couple podcasts, but I predict that WrestleMania inevitably will end up over there in Saudi Arabia, at some point in the not too distant future. So that's a bummer. But what's a bigger bummer for me is this superstar, this wrestler who I held so dear for so long, to me is going by the way of someone else, another celebrity who I in many ways worshipped when I was younger, in a Sean Diddy Combs. Now, granted, their transgressions are a lot different, Mike Steph, but much different. But that was around the same era where I was rocking. I know you were too. I was rocking the Sean John. I was wearing no. This is true, Mike Steph.
No, I wasn't rocking the Sean John.
I was
a Rocker Red fan.
Oh, I was rocking both.
Okay,
how about that?
Flex.
Yeah, and yeah, flex. And I was wearing the CM Punk tee. So my love and my affinity for this artist goes back a long time. Here's my issue. And you mentioned a lot of the issues that he has stood for very visibly, right? I think we as people, and certainly for celebrities, there's two ways to go about your advocacy. You can do it behind the scenes, and that's amazing. The work gets done. Or you can be public about it. I think there's real value in both approaches, especially if you're a celebrity. In Punk's case, you listed it off, Mike. I'd also add to your list him wearing the Chicago Teachers Union t-shirt. I'm sure he does more than just rock the t-shirt, right? But that resonated with me, obviously in a really profound way, working in education, of, oh man, this dude is about so many of the things that I stand for and that I value. I don't know his financial situation by any means. He's had one of the most successful careers of any wrestler of any generation, period. To me, it would just seem that he doesn't need to do these shows. Now, granted, a lot of wrestlers in the company who weren't on these Saudi Arabia cards, over the recent months and years, they've started to pop up, whether that be the Sami Zayns of the world, and certainly women now are featured on the card, which was seen as a really big deal for WWE. And as part of their propaganda, that said it, they would promote that, hey, we're helping to advance the cause, at least for gender equality, over there. I would push back to what you said about Mr. Punk, CM, being for LGBTQ rights, because that can be true. That is true, right? We've seen that in AEW in particular. I remember this, which is awesome and is why I love him. At the same time, you're collecting the check and you're going over there when being a part of that community not only leads you to be shunned or to not get a plate passed to you at the holidays, but you can literally be killed if you are of that identity, if you are gay over there. So you mix that with the fact that, okay, women can be on the card, right? Jade and Asuka can fight, but they have to wear swimsuits Like it just seems so evident to me that they would not be over there if it didn't come with a $50 million paycheck per event. And particularly in the times we're living in, you've expressed this incredibly eloquently on your show. You continue to do so in the era we're living in, particularly if it seems like you got bread like that and you have enough cachet, which I would think CM Punk does, and maybe we'll get into this in the next segment. You have the ability to put your foot down and say, you know what, I'm not messing with that. Not only because I have the cachet and I'm CM Punk, I can say that, but because if you're really about what you stand for, going over there is such a bad look. And you can pull up the tweets to see as much. And then the apology to be administered out. I know you have thoughts on the apology of apologizing to the fans and going from there. Here's where I'm at, Mike. With these Crown Jewel shows, I totally hear the argument that WWE is in the fan service business. What's the line we always hear? They are responsible for putting smiles on the faces of fans and also charging absurd amounts of money for record gates. You love the announcements every time. Hey, we're sponsored by Prime, Slim Jim, Pizza Hut, Morgan & Morgan. And also, hey, everyone, we broke a record gate. We charged you schmucks your insurance money and you're not going to pay your student loans. And by the way, watch Crown Jewel next month. I don't know if you heard, they stone gay people over there. Yay! It's absurd. I think it's a terrible look for Punk. And maybe the what one would argue baggage of him really needing to be on his P's and Q's and not stirring up anything, given how his most recent stop went, and obviously he has history in WWE. New regime now, but he has history. I would think if he's the person that he appears to be, someone who cares about, I don't know if I would say reputation, but his legacy, I think it's fair to bring that L word up at this point in his career. I would imagine that he's thinking about legacy and not just from the in-ring work and the storylines he's been telling, which, by the way, the stories have been great. Him versus Drew McIntyre, him versus Seth Rollins. Overall, I would say he's delivered in this WWE run in spades. I, again, as a longtime Punk fan, was just incredibly disappointed that he decided to go over there. And then the apology tour and again, I didn't watch the match, but apparently Punk versus Cena was exactly what you would expect. That just leads me to a different conversation, which I won't get into here, about the current product of WWE in many ways not really speaking to me. I think the women's division is amazing. Like the roster, the depth, it's so good. On the men's side, it's lacking for me at the moment, but I want to pass it to you, Mike. Very disappointed because CM Punk, the allure of Punk has been for so long that he is who we think he is. He is a rebel with a cause, with many causes, as you outlined, and him being the next superstar in a long line of list of superstars who have went over there. It's very disappointing. Obviously, he has tons of fans around the world. So I can hear the argument of, I'm just trying to tell this story that I was asked to. I am trying to serve fans. I have grown as a person, as you mentioned. And certainly nobody is above that. I know I'm not. God is still working on me in many ways. My expectations were just different of him as a performer and as someone who I thought had developed enough cachet to be able to stand on business. Not necessarily stand on a tweet from 10 years ago. I probably tweeted stuff that I so regret. But to my knowledge, Mike, not enough progress has changed over there for it to be okay to partake. And moreover, finally, I continue to be disappointed with not just the shows happening over there, but then the propaganda, the sports washing that always accompanies it. Riyadh season on the mat, the commercials, visit Riyadh. Again, I guess unless you're a woman who wants to show her, shoulder, or unless you're gay. If you're that, don't visit because you could end up in jail or dead. Or, God forbid, you're a journalist reporting on atrocities, and then we'll take you in the back and chop you up and mail out your pieces to the Crown Prince and other folks. So I had expectations about who CM Punk is. He's one of my favorite wrestlers ever. That will not change, but I'm incredibly disappointed. It makes me not only look at my relationship to him differently, but also just makes me really sad that he's taken part in a lot of this business that I don't agree with.
Well, I'll start from here. Now, people can get upset for him participating in the show, granted. But if anybody really digs deeper or thinks back, or just logically speaking, once he signed his name on the dotted line to come to WWE, to a certain degree, that was swallowing crap and liking it. Because no matter if Vince wasn't there, even though at the time I think when he came back in late 2023, that was the time in which Vince finally got shown the door officially. Like, he had left and then he snuck back in and was still, moving around.
Tried to creep in the back door.
Yeah, and then right around that time, that's when all the allegations came on and for him to leave. But for him to sign the name on the dotted line, that was already eating crow. Like, okay, I literally went to war with this organization, with this company. I spent over $2 to $3 million in which called lawyer fees and court fees going after this company. I said they put my health, they were detrimental to my health, literally. And I'm going back. Why? Because, all right, he's grown as a person. Okay. Maybe that was the last resort if he wanted to continue his career, in which he had just recently came back. Okay. So I feel like if anything, if there was going to be any outrage when it comes to the morals, or when it comes to the moral standing that he holds himself to, or he's held himself to throughout his whole career, especially in the last decade, I would have thought there would have been more people then that would have came out like, yo, my man, you went from suing them to going to the competition, trying to raise the competition up. All right, things didn't work out, and then you literally came back and kind of manipulated your way back into the good graces, like trying to mend fences before it got to the point that you had to come with hat in hand, so to speak. Now, trust me, he wasn't doing it for free, but I feel like once he signed his name on that dotted line, he was already compromising something. And if you was going to be I don't know, it's not all or nothing, but if you're going to be a supporter, if you're going to be a fan or believe he is who he said he was, what have you, if you wasn't really being skeptical back then, I don't see why this particular thing should change, because everybody knew. How many years had they been going to Saudi Arabia when he came? 4 or 5 years by that time? Yeah, there's always been that, well, you have the choice not to go, and it won't be held against you, which in some ways it hasn't. In some ways it did. But Sami Zayn, for example, it wasn't so much that he chose not to go. No, he wasn't allowed to go. They told them, no, he cannot come based on his Syrian heritage. No, he cannot come in this country until Saudi Arabia and Syria and all that. And they got their
right. With just by itself. Why are they over there? Why are we? And you brought this up on previous episodes, Mike. WWE is not the only company, and certainly not the only company that I support with my dollar that does business over there. The difference for me, yeah, that's right, I brought my trusty ass notes. The difference for me is that I don't look to Nike as being a beacon of ethics and what is right in this world. If I want to get my book once, I'm going to get my book once, and I'm going to get free shipping at that. Nike Plus out this, you know what? I don't look to them to be a beacon of good and moral. I mean, I hope they are, but if I want these A1s, if I want these Asia Wilsons, I'm going to get those. But for CM Punk, part of the sell is you are supporting not only a great storyteller, but someone who is about the right things and is left leaning, like a lot of wrestling fans. And then if I feel like that's no longer who that person is, or at least is willing to bend the proverbial moral compass to get the bag, or to have the John Cena match, which you told me before the recording, this was a great point by you. It's just what you do. You butter up the competition, and then you also, just bring it right down on them. That's Debate Prep Jones. Money in the Bank would have been the better spot for that match to occur, given the history of their previous bout years ago at that event. But you know what we got instead, Mike Steph? John Cena and Logan Paul versus Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. Now, granted, the artist formerly known as R-Truth, Ron Killings, returned. Big pop, great decision, glad that happened. But where we're at with WWE now, with the TKO merger, doing business with UFC, the powers that be, again, not only re-upping the Saudi deal, but adding more dates to it. Why? Money. And then you and I both saw this. The current Secretary of Education, right? If we look at her confirmation hearing, who's behind? Who's in the front row? Oh, I remember that face. That's the cerebral assassin in company. To me, it's just an indictment in the larger ecosystem. There you go. For your YouTube viewers, yeah, there's the photo right there. To me, it's indicative Punk's decision to go over there, or maybe again, kind of forced to, right? Because I don't know that if he's in a position of the same authority, maybe that he would have been certainly in AEW, right? We know that he was in a much more, from our lens, right, from our couch, is in a much more vulnerable spot than in AEW when he could kind of call his shots, and we won't relitigate all that, right? But I feel like the difference is, Punk or WWE versus a Nike and maybe other places that do business there is particularly for Punk. I've looked to him as sort of that moral compass, which inherently is maybe wrong to do for a celebrity, but as a fan of his for so long, can you be about the LGBTQ plus community in such a visible way if you're also willing to go to Saudi Arabia for this show and then also apologize to the fans for your words on Twitter years ago? I just don't think we have to give him a pass. I think we can say we love what he's given to the business. Again, I say WWE 2.0, this run by and large has been great, but also, my man, what? Why are you going over there? It's as egregious as it was during Blood Money 1.
Okay.
And by the way, Mike Steph, the difference with Punk is, unlike other superstars on the roster who I really, really enjoy, Bianca Belair, name the person who shows up at these shows, Seth Rollins. I don't necessarily, I hope they're great people in real life, but I don't look to them as the moral compass that I do CM Punk. And I think CM Punk has capitalized on that financially over the years of being that person, like you pointed out, who is usually standing on the right side of history. He really has leaned into that over the years, because I think genuinely that's who he is. I just think this was a real decision that I disagree with, and that has really impacted me as a longtime fan of his.